Cosmic Ships, Samael Aun Weor, First edition, Medellin, Colombia, 1964. There's an illustration here of about 1,000 cosmic ships. These extraterrestrial UFOs, or ships, known as the Reception in Tanio, the capital of Mars, on October 14, 1956. Actually, many thousands of ships, it says in the description here, Martian ships, for the first terrestrial expedition. That's what they're preparing for, I guess, which included 3 ships made here on Earth. This illustration was taken from chapter 15 of Nautikiso's Genovese's book, I Have Been on Mars. Chapter 1, Cosmic Ships. It was back in 1950 when we first talked about flying discs. That year we emphatically affirmed that such flying discs are really cosmic ships manned by inhabitants of other planets. At the time, many laughed at our statements, but today, events have proven us right. In the United States, there is a scientific department dedicated solely to the research of these cosmic ships. The law of accidents also includes these ships, and several have collided or exploded violently in the air. The United States has remains of some of those ships in its possession. We do not propose to demonstrate in this pamphlet the reality of interplanetary ships, because that reality has already been fully demonstrated. We only now want to expand the information that we gave to humanity in the year 1950 in the first edition of the Perfect Matrimony. Cosmic ships have their history and traditions. Actually, these ships were created by angels, archangels, seraphim, and so on. Buddha's angels, who have a body of flesh and blood. Many cosmic traditions mention Saint Venona and his system of cosmic navigation. Saint Venona is an angel with a body of flesh and bone, or flesh and blood. Saint Venona was born on the planets Suort, where he dedicated himself to investigating the law of the fall. Actually, what this is relating to is the law of gravity, how things fall and get sucked towards planets, planetary bodies. Here, dear reader, is the formulation that Saint Venona himself gave about this cosmic law. He said, "All things that exist in the world fall towards the bottom. And the bottom for any part of the universe is its closest stability, and that stability is the place of point on which all the lines of force coming from all directions converge. The centers of all the suns and all the planets in our universe are precisely those points of stability." I repeat, the center of these suns and planets, the core of these planets. They are nothing but the lower points of those regions of space towards which the forces coming from all directions of that given part of the universe definitely tend. The balance that allows the suns and the planets to maintain their position is also concentrated in these points. When enunciating his principle, Saint Venona also said that when things fell in space, wherever they went, they tended to fall towards one sun or another, towards one or another planet, depending on which sun or planet that given part of space belonged to. That the object fell, each sun or planet in that given sphere constituting the stability or background. Saint Venona, after deep research, knew how to use this cosmic particularity for the locomotion of cosmic ships. The cosmic ships designed by Saint Venona were based on the law of the fall. The only serious problem was that of planetary atmospheres. These do not allow objects to fall straight in space. San Venona managed to solve that problem easily and built cosmic ships wonderfully. We do not propose in this small pamphlet to explain in depth the entire mechanism of these ships because, in addition to being too complicated, it would be tiring for the reader. The inspection commission led by Archangel Adosia blessed and approved the work of San Venona. The ships of Saint Venona moved with the magnetic forces of the worlds and were very fast. However, the most serious problem arose when the ships approached any planet or sun in space. Difficult maneuvers were then needed to avoid a catastrophe. There were few angel men who could handle those ships. It was very difficult to steer the Saint Venona ships, and every day more and more technicians were needed to drive these ships. However, the Saint Venona system was a technical revolution in its time and completely displaced other systems. After many years of cosmic activity, the Saint Venona system was displaced by the revolutionary system of Archangel Hariton. This archangel is a man in the most complete sense of the word, and has a body of flesh and bone like any person. The wonderful works of Mr. Hariton were supervised by a great wise man known throughout the cosmos as Adosia. This wise man is also a knight who has already acquired the degree of archangel. Modern cosmic ships are based on the works of Archangel Hariton. All the technical functionalism of these ships is carried out on the basis of continuous movement. I guess he means perpetual motion. This is not a mechanics text, and we are not mechanics either. For this reason, we refrain from describing all the mechanics of the cosmic ships. Millions of cosmic ships travel through infinite cosmic space, as numerous as the sands of the sea. The intersolar system ships. I suppose you could say interstellar because a solar system is governed by a star. These are gigantic and carry within their gigantic bellies smaller ships that they use to deploy to the planets. This is similar to large ships that have small boats on board and they're used to go ashore. Any mature humanity in the cosmos has the full right to receive the cosmic ships. Normally, the older brothers help the younger ones, and when a humanity reaches our age, they receive a visit from our planetary humanities who initiate them into cosmic travel. And in addition to giving them some of those ships, they're taught how to build them as well. In times of Atlantis, cosmic ships normally landed at the airports of the city of Samlios. Then the inhabitants of other planets visited the kings and lived with them in their palaces. When humanity became morally corrupt, the sister humanities of other planets stopped visiting us. In this time of bankruptcy of all spiritual values, we will once again be helped by our brothers from other worlds. We need extra help because we are failed and on the brink of a great cataclysm. Earthly terrestrial humanity has reached the maximum of its corruption, and the help of our older brothers is urgent. Several inhabitants of Earth have already been taken on a trip to other planets in infinite space. In the Republic of Mexico, 2 men were taken to Venus, one resident in Jalisco and the other in the capital city of the country. In the next chapter, we will talk about the latter. We know that in Brazil, there is another man who was taken to Mars. there's no doubt that we will all be able to visit the other planets in space. We are on the eve of a great cosmic cataclysm, and we will be warned before the great catastrophe. Sister humanities from other planets will try to save us, and will officially enter our main cities and announce the danger that awaits us. But if we continue with atomic explosions and vices and all kinds of evil and wars, the catastrophe will be inevitable. It is good to know that a group of Tibetan lamas already have a few of these cosmic ships. They received them from our brothers from other planets, and they have them very well kept in a certain secret place in the Himalayas. Some citizens of other planets already walk through the streets of our cities. They dress as civilians, and no one recognizes them as aliens or extraterrestrials. They study our languages, uses, and customs with the purpose of helping us. We are going to be helped on a large scale. We urgently need that help because we are totally failed. Many cosmic ships now land in jungles of Brazil, in the south of Argentina, and so on, and in some other places where they have airports, there are secrets. Some of those cosmic crew members usually stay among us. Those who believe that visiting humanities from other planets are trying to destroy us are mistaken. Those who assume perversity in our visiting when visiting our brothers and sisters are mistaken. It is clear that they have weapons with which they can paralyze man and machines. It is logical that they are invulnerable because they are well armed and protected. If they wanted to dominate this world, they would do it in seconds because they have special weapons to do it. They could also destroy this planet, blow it up. But that's not really what they want. They are not destructive. They respect life. They are not the evil earthlings. Our visiting brothers only want to help us, and each and every one of the inhabitants of the earth must prepare to receive them. Currently, inhabitants of Mars, Venus, Mercury, and so on live in all the great cities of the world. They study our languages and customs with the purpose of helping us. The cosmic ships land in remote places and sometimes leave some crew members from other planets who, in civilian clothes, walk through the streets of New York and Paris and London and so on, without anyone knowing them because they are very similar in appearance to us, even though many of them are much more beautiful and perfect, psychologically. The fantasies of many authors who imagine that the inhabitants of other planets have a different shape than the human being on Earth is absurd. Or rather, the fantasies are absurd. The physical features and forms of the physical body of all men in the cosmos are always similar. This is the characteristic of the human kingdom, mainly being bipedal, walking upright. Chapter 2. A Mexican on the planet Venus. We know here in Mexico City a man who was on the planet Venus. We have the great honor of having visited it. One winter night we arrived at the doors of his house, and we were lucky to be received by him. The family was watching television, but they very kindly turned it off and left us alone with him in the living room. He is a very sincere and kind man. He's not a cult or spiritualist or anything like that. He does not presume to be wise, and despite having lived the most extraordinary cosmic adventure, he really has no pride. We do not propose this simple pamphlet to narrate in detail what happened to this man. We just want to talk in summary, and that's all. In the month of August of 1953, this man was personally on the planet Venus. His name is Salvador Villanueva Medina. The event happened when I least expected it. He was driving a rental car with an American couple heading to the United States through Mexican territory along the Laredo Highway. He had traveled 484 kilometers when the car broke down. The gringos abandoned the car and went in search of a tow truck to take the car to the nearest town for the purpose of repairing it. This was the beginning of the adventure. Salvador got under the car to try to repair it. And suddenly he heard footsteps on the sand of the road, and someone asked him in perfect Spanish what was wrong with the car. Salvador remained silent, and when he left the car, essentially that area, he found himself in front of a strangely dressed man who was about 1 meter and 20 centimeters tall, which is extremely short. The body of this man was of extraordinary perfection, however, white as an ermine and full of beauty throughout. What caught Salvador's attention was the strange uniform and the mysterious glowing belt. The man had long hair and wore a very special metal helmet. There were really few words that were exchanged between the two at that moment. The strange character said goodbye politely and then went into the mountain. The most interesting thing came later when Salvador was already sleeping. Some loud knocks on his car window startled him awake, and without thinking much, Salvador opened the door of his car, and to his surprise were these enormous, or rather his surprise was enormous, when he saw the same character again accompanied by another one who had the same appearance and the same suit. Salvador invited them to get into his car and then tried to help them close the door. But when he stretched his right arm over them for this purpose, he felt an electric current that momentarily paralyzed his arm. The talk in the car was wonderful. They told Salvador that they came from the planet Venus. Salvador at first did not believe them and was even outraged, believing that these gentlemen were mocking him. Salvador even stated that only planet Earth could have inhabitants. He said that he had learned this from the statements of the wise men of the earth and so on. The wise men with quotation marks usually. Samael, when he's writing, he refers to the scientists as the wise men, but really he means fools. What makes you think such a thing? They asked him. Perhaps the poor means they have for their calculations. I don't know what that means, really. Doesn't it seem like too much pretension to believe that you are the only beings that populate the universe? These words already seemed very strange to Salvador, and also the color of those very white faces, their expressive eyes, their strange voice, their strange helmets, their mysterious belts, and so on. It made him think a lot, highly consider this fact. It would be long to narrate the entire conversation that Salvador had with those Venusians. They told him what life was like on Venus, how they lived, what they ate, what their cities were like, their streets, and so on. They also cleared up his doubts by explaining to him that they could turn what was harmful into beneficialness and artificially shape their climate and their environment and so on. Under these conditions, if Venus were uninhabitable, they would make it habitable, and because through their scientific advances. However, it is clear that Venus is perfectly habitable. It was already dawn, and the Venusians very kindly invited Salvador to accompany them to the planet Venus. Salvador got out of the car after these mysterious men, and certainly after walking through the mountain for a while, Salvador stopped in front of the majestic ship. This was a majestic and helpless flattened sphere. I don't know why it says helpless here. This was translated, machine translated. Humble, perhaps, flattened sphere that rested on 3 buoys that formed a triangle. Salvador says that the complex was impressive and that it gave the impression of being a great fortress. Salvador entered the ship, the doors closed, and it left for the planet Venus. Everything Salvador saw on Venus was extraordinary. The Venusian civilization was formidable. On Venus, civilization had reached its peak. Money is not needed there. Each citizen works a couple hours a day only, and in exchange for this, they have the right to everything that human beings need in life. Transportation, food, clothing, vacations, science, education, and so on. Everything belongs to everyone. If someone needs a car, they take it, they use it, and then leave it in their parking spot. If someone is hungry, they eat in any hotel, and you don't have to pay for anything because you are working, so you have the right to everything. If you need clothing, all you have to do is order it at a store, and you pay nothing, because since you work, you have the right to dress, and so on. On the planet Venus, cars move with solar energy. The main foods are taken from the sea. The gardens are on the roofs of houses and buildings. On Venus, fish and fruits are the basic food. There is no government, nor homelands. The entire planet is the homeland, and only the wise direct and advise. I asked Salvador about the religious question, and the answer was that there are no religions on Venus, and that each citizen behaves on the street as if they were in a temple. Each person on Venus considers that the temple is within themselves. The sidewalks of the streets in the cities of Venus are not still, and are formed with metal bands that are in motion and save effort for pedestrians. The stream of the streets, that is, the center of the streets, have metal ribbons that collect the force of the sun with which the cars move. On Venus, everything belongs to everyone, and the entire Venusian family is one big family. Children are born in special maternity wards and educated and raised in group homes. When a child is born, he or she is marked on one foot. That mark indicates its origin and powers. Accordingly, that child is educated in the collective home. When they are of age, they begin to occupy their corresponding position in society. In these conditions, the private family does not exist. Everyone on Venus is one unique family. There is no famine, no war, no social classes. Only wisdom and love reign there. Salvador Villanueva Medina lived on Venus for several days. On that planet, he found 2 French residents, both twin brothers and veterans of the Second World War. They, too, were transported to Venus, and they begged and cried out to the Venusians to not bring them back to Earth. They happily lived there. Salvador returned to planet Earth, was brought and returned to let the inhabitants of the Earth know that Venus is inhabited. Phillips Laboratories analyzed soil and plants in the place where Salvador located the cosmic ship and found a very strange molecular and atomic disorder. George Adamski, the North American scientist who met some Venusians in the Nevada desert, also contacted Salvador and gave a lecture on this topic at the Insurgentes Theater in Mexico City. Great German scientists investigated the land where Salvador found the cosmic ship, and the result of their investigations was the same as that of Phillips's house. Or rather, the Phillips house. A great scientist came from the palace of the kings of England to investigate the case, and the conclusions are the same as those of the Phillips house. Due to these difficult times in which we live, we will be helped by the inhabitants of other planets. It is necessary to learn to communicate telepathically with them. Jesus said, "Ask and it will be given to you. Strike and you will be heard." We can all visit other planets if we know how to ask. Gnostics must develop telepathy. The Gnostics must go out to the fields, to the deepest forests, and there in peace and deep meditation communicate telepathically with the Venusians, or with the Mercurians or Martians, and beg them to take them to Venus, Mercury, or Mars. In the peace of the mountains or on the lonely beach, any day you have the joy that Salvador Villanueva Medina had. Each of us can be taken to Venus or other worlds. The system to communicate with these angel men is telepathy. The universal Christian Gnostic movement has formidable systems for developing telepathy. Whoever wants to visit other worlds must not drink, nor smoke, or have any vices. Our missionary international Gnostic, Joaquin Amortegui, was visited by an interplanetary ship in his retirement from the Summum Supremum Sanctuarium. The thought waves of any supplicant can travel, or rather they do travel, to the planet Venus in a few seconds. And if we are worthy and deserving, we can receive a response. On any given day in the solitude of the countryside, we can have the joy of seeing a cosmic ship land near us, and then they can take us. They are real humans with bodies of flesh and blood. Human beings with the soul of angels. These are angelic human beings.
Chapter 3. The sense of self, the pluralized I. There is free energy in its movement and stagnant energy. The self is a knot that must be untied. The self is stagnant energy. The universal spirit of life is energy, free in its movement. The spirit is not the self. The soul is not the self. The physical body is not the self. It is necessary to know that the self is the Satan that the Bible tells us about. The self is the Ahriman of the Persians. The self is a bundle of memories, desires, passions, desires, fears, etc., etc. There is no such higher self. Truly, our real being is above all concepts of the self. Our real being is the being and nothing more than that. The being. The soul is the being. The spirit is the being. But the self is not the soul or the spirit. The self is the devil, and that's all. The self exists in a pluralized form. By this we mean that the self is a legion of devils. Just as water is composed of many drops, just as the flame has many sparks, so the self is composed of many small selves. Every desire is personified by a little me. Each desire is personified by another little me. The 7 deadly sins are personified by 7 selves, 1 for each deadly sin, 7 for the 7 deadly sins. All vices, passions, and evils are personified by small selves that together constitute the self or reincarnate ego, which reincarnate is the self. The self is reincarnated to satisfy desires and pay karma. The self is the origin of pain. The self is the origin of all our evils. When the self is reduced to dust, the only thing that remains within us is the soul. Truly, the soul has nature of happiness. The soul is happiness. It is absolutely absurd to seek happiness. She comes when the self has died. As long as the pluralized self exists, there can be no happiness. There are pleasant hours and joys in life. But happiness does not exist as long as the self is not dissolved. When the self is reduced to dust, we can reincarnate ourselves on other more advanced planets to work on our intimate self-realization. The dissolution of the self brings true freedom. The Venusians are truly blessed because they have already annihilated the self. They have no self. Venusians do not need money because they have no desire to accumulate. They do not desire anything. They have no greed. They are content with their daily bread. Such consciousness is typical of beings that no longer have self. On Venus, authorities are not needed because there is no violence. Only the self is violent. In Venus, no government is needed because each citizen knows how to govern himself. When the self has been annihilated, each citizen becomes a government for himself. So who will want to govern? In Venus, there is no private family. All Venusians are one family. That is only possible thanks to the fact that they already annihilated the horrible pluralized self. The self is what we call my family, my house, my properties, my lust, my desires for resentments, my desires, my passions, my memories, etc., etc., etc. The self continues in our descendants. The self is the race, the nation, my social class, my money, my family, my heritage, etc., etc., etc. The self is the subconscious. When the self is annihilated, the subconscious becomes conscious. We need to annihilate the self to make the subconscious conscious. Only by annihilating the self can we make the subconscious conscious. When the subconscious becomes conscious, the problem of breaking down has been solved. When the subconscious becomes conscious, we no longer need to worry about the breaking down, because while the physical body sleeps, we live in the absolutely conscious internal worlds. Turns. Today, humanity is 97% subconscious and only 3% conscious. We need to be 100% aware. The inhabitants of Venus are totally 100% conscious. The humanity of Venus annihilated the self. Really, the self can only be annihilated through rigorous creative understanding. We need to do self-direction to the self with the scalpel of self-criticism. Instead of criticizing others, we should criticize ourselves. Practical life is the mirror where we can see ourselves, whole body, just as we are. When the mind is in a state of alert perception, we can easily discover our defects in coexistence with others, because these emerge spontaneously in relation to neighbors, friends, co-workers, wives, children, husbands, etc. It is amazing how our defects stand out. And if we are alert and vigilant like the watcher in time of war, it is hardly logical that we then see them as they are. In coexistence, self-discovery exists when we are in the state of alert perception. Every defect discovered must be analyzed intellectually. But the intellect is not everything. The intellect is only a fraction of the mind. We need to go deeper. We need to explore the subconscious to discover the intimate springs of our defects. Only through very deep meditation can we truly explore the subconscious. When we have completely understood a defect, the energetic self that personifies it disintegrates. This is how we are dying from instant to instant. We need mystic death. We need the death of the self. Let us remember that each of us carries within us a legion of devils. The self is a legion of devils. Within each person there is the body of desire, and within the body of desire, the pluralized self. The pluralized self miserably spends the essence, that is the raw material, the substance of the soul. The self spends the precious soul essence in atomic explosions of anger, greed, lust, pride, laziness, gluttony, etc., etc., etc. When the self has died, the essence accumulates, becoming soul. We need the self to die. We need only that which is happiness to live in us, that which we call soul. When the self dies, karma ends, and we are actually free. The intimate contradictions of each person are due to the pluralized self. I'm going to read a newspaper, says the ME of the intellectual center. I don't want to read. I want to ride a bicycle, says the self of the center of movement. I want such a woman. I love her, says the emotion center. I don't want it. What I want is money. Says the ME of the mental center. To hell with these worries. I'm going to eat, says the ME of digestion. I want to eat a lot. says the ME of greed. I swear to be faithful to Gnosis, says the emotional self. To hell with Gnosis, the self exclaims furiously. Intellectual, it's better to get money, says the ME of greed. I will join another school better than Gnosis, says the self of curiosity. This is how we do not have individuality. We are not individualized. We are legion of devils. When the self dissolves, only individuality will remain within us. That is, the individual soul. Venusians are true sacred individuals. They have no self. Venusians are truly perfect men. We earthers are intellectual animals. We do not have authentic individuality. We have seen many people swear allegiance to Gnosis, swear before the ARA, and sometime later they join another school and declare themselves enemies of Gnosis. This is because they have no individuality. The self that at a given moment was enthusiastic about Gnosis is later displaced by another self that abhors Gnosis. Still, the human being cannot have continuity of purpose because it does not have individuality. It is a legion of devils, and each devil has its own criteria, ideas, opinions, etc., etc. The human being is an unachieved being. We do not yet possess the being. Only being gives us true individuality. Chapter 21. Open Letter. Honorable President of the United States of North America and Lord Prime Minister of the Soviet Union, please excuse us for omitting your specific names and surnames, as we do not know in what year this letter may reach your hands. Logically, times change, and we do not know if you will still be occupying the first magistracy of your respective countries on that date. The purpose of this open letter is to inform you that the conquest of space has already been achieved in Latin America. It is only natural that you might smile skeptically at such information, perhaps even considering it insolent. We fulfill our duty by advising you not to spend more money on cosmic rockets, as those funds should be put to better use. Cosmic rockets are useless and represent a true failure. Currently, in a secret location within the deep heart of the South American jungle, there exists a scientific society comprising 98 eminent scientists from various European nations. This society, following in the footsteps of the great and wise Guillermo Marconi, learned to use powerful solar energy with total mastery. Under the direction of Martian sages, this society is currently building wonderful interplanetary ships. With these vessels, they have not only thoroughly studied all of your territories, but have also managed to travel to the Moon and Mars. It is worth clarifying that the aforementioned scientific society has sufficient funds to continue its work, thanks to the financial support of the Martians. We clarify that it would not be strange for you to discard this letter indignantly, as your pride and skepticism are well known on planet Earth. However, within a few years, you will have concrete evidence of our claims. The liquid fuel that you use for cosmic rockets is not useful for interplanetary navigation. The cosmic ships designed by the Martians and built by the wise men of the aforementioned scientific society, under the direction of Martian sages, are powered by solar energy. The scientists of this society are eminent and religious. There is even a priest among them, regardless of his specific religion. We are absolutely convinced that the conquest of space is impossible if we exclude religiosity. All inhabitants of the cosmos are deeply religious. Everyone knows very well that the divine is latent and immanent. in every atom of the infinite. The aforementioned scientific society has built a large underground laboratory in the heart of the jungle. This laboratory has everything necessary for research. Contact with the Martian was achieved on December 16, 1955, at 5 in the afternoon. 5 Martian machines flew over the jungle at that time, and 1 landed. 4 Martian people descended, among them the Martian leader of the expedition. Since then, contact was established, and cosmic ships from Mars land normally in that region. The 98 scientists residing in that deep jungle of South America coexist normally with the Martians and are learning the science of interplanetary navigation from them. These scientists received a document of gold from the hands of the most illustrious Martian chief, Mr. Tej, with the following inscription: Loga, Mars, universal brother of the immense space, pays tribute and friendship to Dog, the earth, in the vehement desire to unite all beings who live in one spirit, in the infinite spirit, for eternal glory and peace. We congratulate the Martian chief, Mr. Teich, for his 4-word speech. These 4 words are Sundi, Dog, Loga, which mean God, Earth, Mars. With this speech and the golden document, the alliance between Martians and Earthlings has been sealed. We also extend our congratulations to Mr. Martinelli for the beautiful and meaningful ring given to Mr. Tej. On October 12th in the year 1956, at 12 meridian hours, the most important cosmic event of all centuries took place on the face of the earth, following the coming of our Lord the Christ. One of the most illustrious members of the aforementioned scientific society, the most illustrious Mr. Narciso Genovesi, says that at that precise time, the Columbus expedition left for the planet Mars. We owe much to Mr. Narciso Genovesi regarding this scientific expedition. If this letter reaches him, may he receive our congratulations. Just as there were 3 ships that arrived with Columbus in America, there were also 3 cosmic ships built by Earth scientists under the direction of the Martians. The names of the 3 cosmic ships are Loga, Doge, and Kundi, meaning Mars, Earth, and Alliance. The interior of the ships was decorated with the image of the Christ, and the trip was carried out with complete success. The convoy was made up of 3 cosmic land ships and 6 Martian ships that fulfilled the mission of escorting the Earth ships. 9 people formed the crew of the Earth ships, 3 for each of the 3 land ships. The first stage of the cosmic flight was the moon, and it was absolutely proven ad nauseam that the moon is an already dead world. The expedition members rested on the moon and then continued their journey towards Mars. 10 additional ships of Martian origin joined the expeditionaries on the moon. All the inhabitants of the city of Tanyo, the capital of the planet Mars, went out to the airport to welcome the visitors from Earth. The expeditionaries remained on the planet Mars for 5 days, dedicated to observation and study. They learned a great deal on Mars, and after returning victorious, they continued their studies and research in the heart of the South American jungle. The 98 European scientists dedicated to this research under the direction of the Martian sages want to share their knowledge with all the inhabitants of Earth. They want all of humanity to participate in interplanetary navigation. However, Russia and the United States, with their atomic experiments and nuclear explosions, are hindering us. They are preventing the members of the Augusta Scientific Society from allowing all inhabitants of the earth to participate in cosmic journeys. The two great world wars that filled the world with pain, and now the Cold War, with every possibility of it turning hot and again filling the world with blood and destruction, are the main factors preventing cultural exchange with the Martians and cosmic travel. No more cosmic rockets are needed, as contact with the Martians has already been established. What is now required to participate in cosmic travel is the dissolution of the self. As long as the self exists, there will be no peace. And as long as there is no peace, interplanetary travel is impossible. In these precise moments in which we live, what is needed are not cosmic rockets, but the study of the self and its total death. In this way, and only in this way, trips to Mars will be possible. It is impossible to take murderers, thieves, drunks, gluttons, the greedy, materialists, Marxists, enemies of the eternal, or prostitutes to Mars. On Mars, only peace reigns. Even there, governments, nationalities, armies, and police are not needed. On Mars, there are no criminals, and if one were born, they would be considered sick and taken to an isolated sanatorium. Think, gentlemen, about what this means. Think of a world like that, a world where the self no longer exists. Imagine for a moment an army from Earth invading Mars. Understand what such horror and barbarity would mean. The author of this letter begs you, gentlemen, in the name of truth, to end atomic explosions, end the Cold War, and begin an era of universal religiosity. Very especially, I ask the Soviet Union to suspend the public and private dissemination of materialist dialectics and to intensify propaganda in favor of religion. Know, Lord, that all the inhabitants of the cosmos worship divinity and that the conquest of space is impossible without religiosity. Please, gentlemen, I beg you, on behalf of the inhabitants of the earth, do not harm us anymore with your wars, hatred of divinity, and nuclear explosions. Signed in Mexico on the 29th day of the month of April, year 3 of Aquarius, for the founding president of the Gnostic movement, Samael Aun Weor.